Today, we are going to break down an absolutely incredible system for memorizing the Quran. This isn't just theory, it comes straight from the training of a memory coach. It's a method that promises to completely change the game, making memorization faster, way more effective, and something that actually sticks with you for the long haul.
So let's just start with a huge, almost unbelievable question. Is it really possible to memorize an entire page of the Quran in just 10 minutes? I mean, that sounds kind of crazy, right? Well, according to the source for this system, the answer is a definite yes. But, and this is a big but, it only works if you follow a very specific, science-backed system. So let's get into what that looks like.
The whole thing is broken down into 4 key stages, and each one builds on the last. First, we're going to talk about preparing your body and your mind. Then, we'll dive into a really unique 4-step reading method. After that, we tackle one of the biggest problems people face, linking verses together so you don't get stuck. And finally, we'll reveal the secret weapon that brings it all together, the mind map.
Okay, first things first. Before you even look at the first verse, you've got to set the foundation. This isn't about just trying harder. It's about getting your brain into the perfect state for learning. And it starts with 3 simple but totally critical physical steps that make a world of difference.
Think of this first step like a warm-up before you hit the gym, but for your brain. It's called the visual warm-up. All you have to do is let your eyes scan the whole page for about 20 to 30 seconds. You're not trying to read anything just yet. The goal is to create a kind of mental photograph. Your brain is subconsciously picking up the layout, noticing the first and last words of lines. You're basically creating a map before you even start the journey.
Step 2 is so simple you might overlook it. Just sit up straight. But this is a real game changer. There are actual psychological studies that show proper upright posture can boost your focus by up to 3 times. It totally makes sense when you think about it, right? If you're slouched, your mind feels lazy. Sitting up sends a clear signal to your brain, okay, it's time to work.
And for the last prep step, here's a really interesting little brain hack. Position the mushaf, the physical copy of the Quran, just a little bit to your left. Why would you do that? Well, the idea is that this simple shift in position actually helps to fire up the left hemisphere of your brain. So you're not just using part of your brain, you're engaging more of your total mental horsepower right from the get-go. All right, our brains are warmed up, our posture is on point. Now we get to the real engine of this whole system. This is where the magic happens. We're moving way beyond just repeating words over and over until they stick. This is an active, multi-sensory process that uses your eyes, your voice, and your imagination to weld the verses into your memory.
This 4-step sequence is just brilliant. First, you just read the verse silently with your eyes. Simple enough. But then, you take one deep breath in, and as you slowly breathe out, you recite the verse out loud. That slow exhale forces you to focus in a really intense way. Next, you close your eyes, actually picture the words on the page in your mind, and recite it again mentally. And finally, you lock it in by repeating it 20 to 30 times. This whole process is what takes it from shaky, short-term memory to rock-solid, long-term knowledge.
So, you've memorized a verse, then you memorize the next one. But what happens in between? This is where almost everybody gets tripped up. You know that awkward pause where your brain just goes blank, the verses all start to mush together? This next part is all about forging an unbreakable chain, so you can flow from one verse to the next seamlessly.
And there are 2 amazing techniques for this. The first is called the overlap method. It's exactly what it sounds like. You recite the last few words of the first verse and immediately dive into the first few words of the next one, creating a bridge. The second one, the letter method, is a really clever trick. You find a sound that connects the last word of one verse to the first word of the next. For instance, the source points out how the end sound in yu'minun acts as a perfect mental trigger for the next verse, which starts with aladina. That sound becomes your cue. And that brings us to the final and maybe the most powerful piece of the puzzle. This is what the source calls the magical method. This is the secret sauce that takes all those individual verses you've learned and locks them together into one big visual picture that you can access instantly.
In the source's own words, it's time for the magical method, the mind map, or in Arabic, al-kharita al-dhihniya. And believe me, this isn't just some fancy study note. It's a tool for building a complete mental blueprint of the page, making recall feel totally effortless. And making one is incredibly easy. You just grab a piece of paper and write the name of the surah in the middle. Then, for every verse, you draw a line, a branch, coming out from the center. And on that line, you just write the first word or 2 of the verse. That's it. What you end up with is a visual snapshot, a mental index of the entire page. So when you go to recite, you're not trying to remember a wall of text. You're just picturing this simple map in your head, and each keyword triggers the full verse. It's genius. So as you can see, this isn't just a collection of random tips. It's a complete, start-to-finish system. It all works together. You prepare your body, you use a multisensory approach to read, you learn how to link the verses, and then you lock it all in with a visual map. Every single step builds on the one that came before it to create this incredibly powerful framework for memorization.
When you step back, you see this system is a perfect blend of physical focus and powerful mental imagery to achieve something really amazing. And it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? If you can use such a deliberate, step-by-step technique to memorize sacred text, what else in your life could you master? What other challenge or skill or goal could you conquer if you applied this same kind of focused approach?